All Harry and Meghan need to do is prove to us that she popped those babies out. And that's all they need to do. And if they don't, it is unfair on the children. It's also unfair on the royal family.
We've seen Meghan Markle put out more and more content connected to her children, whether that's the pregnancy video that made the entire world cringe from secondhand embarrassment.
Did Meghan Markle use a surrogate? That's been something posited literally for well over 3 years when it comes to her firstborn son Archie and even her daughter Lilibet. And many people even wonder, are their children even real?
I looked up, her mouth set in a particular way. Things were getting serious. I said to Meg, my love, you need a push.
This is absolutely insane that they thought they could get away with it, especially Meghan Markle and Harry. The con of the century, 2 cons of the century in the form of 2 royal children included in the line of succession.
Buckingham Palace or Prince William set a trap for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and were they gullible enough to fall into that? Meghan put on her Instagram feed earlier this week with Archie in the garden. What did you see?
Description she does of the Portland hospital, the birth, that was completely fabricated. We all know, the first interviews, we all know that she never intended to go to the Portland hospital. She intended to have the baby at home.
But she has that child in a vice-like grip. And it's, you know, if they were a husband and wife team, there are laws now about coercive control. But I had to take my children to Professor Ballstrop, who was the leading expert in the field at that time, at the Chelsea and Westminster Hospital it was, and he was going to be investigating. And of course, you know my boys, so you know they're very spirited.
As Meghan Markle has shared more and more curated glimpses tied to her children, especially the highly discussed pregnancy footage, online speculation has only intensified. For years, critics have pushed theories ranging from surrogacy to even more extreme claims about the children's existence. And now the questions have shifted from idle gossip to a broader narrative. Was there ever a moment when the palace, or Prince William, quietly let the Sussexes walk into a situation they couldn't explain their way out of?
Everything she's done has only drawn more speculation and brought the controversies back up about how Meghan and Harry have handled all of this, as well as the rumors that perhaps they used a surrogate for one or both of the children.
Behind Buckingham Palace gates, something is said to be unfolding that's colder than rumor and quieter than scandal. An internal verification review connected to Archie and Lilibet. For the monarchy, that idea is almost unthinkable, because the institution can survive embarrassment, but it cannot tolerate uncertainty around lineage. Titles can be adjusted, roles can be stripped, but doubt about bloodline destabilizes everything. And according to sources, a cluster of small inconsistencies, missing details, irregular paperwork.
Where are the children? Where are Harry and Meghan's kids? And do they honestly exist? Now, I know that that's kind of like a little bit conspiratorial, but you know what? I'm down the rabbit hole now since I've accepted the moon bump story. And if the moon bump story was true and she didn't actually have these pregnancies, then is it possible that she has faked having the
procedures that didn't match royal norms finally formed a pattern too serious to ignore? Once that pattern reached senior officials, the palace's response, at least as the story goes, was not dramatic, but methodical. They started where any institution obsessed with continuity would, the first official document tied to a royal child's identity, Archie's birth certificate. For most families, it's routine paperwork. For the royals, it's constitutional evidence. Every line is expected to remain clear, consistent, and permanent. But here, the narrative claims it didn't. Where a full legal name would normally sit, the record reportedly shifted to a title-only styling.
California Birth Index, and per the website at thecaliforniabirthindex.org, the California Birth Index, or CABI, is a database that stores records of births in California for tracks of birth certificates. Putting her full official name of Rachel Meghan Markle, you can see that the official records show
Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex, without a first name or surname. In royal bureaucracy, edits like that aren't casual. They require requests, approvals, logs, and justifications strong enough to alter a foundational record connected to succession. Yet the explanations around the change, as presented in this narrative, point in different directions, creating a gap that feels less like clarity and more like smoke. For the palace, uncertainty is more dangerous than controversy. Because if the certificate could be altered once, the next question becomes unavoidable. Why was it altered at all? And what else in the early timeline might not align? That's what allegedly pushed the review deeper, back toward the day Archie was born.
Though Meghan had let it be known she wanted a home birth, it was probably very realistic that her first child at 37, it was going to be born in hospital.
At the time, Archie Mountbatten Windsor was born May 6, 2019.
Where investigators began retracing every step in search of the kind of precision royal procedures are built on. For decades, royal births have followed a familiar choreography: verified birth, official medical statement, palace bulletin, then controlled public imagery. But in this version of events, Archie's arrival felt out of sequence. Confirmation appeared to lag behind announcement, details stayed vague longer than expected, and the first public presentation, rather than feeling ceremonial, was framed as strangely staged. In a system that runs on ritual and documentation, even small deviations become fuel. Then came the location confusion. Early reports suggesting one place, later statements hinting at another. Royal births typically leave a dense paper trail, named medical staff, witnessed moments, logged confirmations, procedures that match precedent.
Meghan and Harry did instead was they did not announce it when Meghan went into labor, for whatever reason. They kept Archie's birth private for over 8 hours. They did not tell people that he was actually born and arrived until 8 hours later. They also issued a confusing press release suggesting Meghan had just gone into labor after Archie had already been born. So they were playing games here with this. And the result was that the media and the public felt misled because they were.
But as the story is told here, when palace officials compared the timeline to standard protocol, they found gaps. Not definitive proof of wrongdoing, but enough missing certainty to keep the question alive. Was the process followed the way it's supposed to be? If Archie's paperwork raised eyebrows, Lilibet's arrival is framed as something even harder for the palace to reconcile. Her birth was announced through the Sussexes' team in California, without the familiar markers the monarchy relies on. No palace bulletin, no UK-based royal medical presence, no traditional public confirmation. For most public figures, that would be normal. But for a child connected, however indirectly, to the royal bloodline, it represents a sharp break from centuries of managed verification. Royal births are typically reinforced by Crown-approved medical verification, immediately filed records, logged witnesses, and confirmed locations.
They decide, okay, well, we have to come out and show the baby in some way, but we're not coming out to the street. The filthy masses are not going to have anything to do with our kid. So then they show up, and there's Meghan in her white dress with Harry, and he's holding this completely still baby.
But in the narrative presented here, those pillars weren't visible for Lilibet, at least not publicly. As investigators allegedly attempted to reconstruct the timeline, contradictions multiplied. Even the visual record, pregnancy appearances captured through screens and long lenses, was framed as inconsistent. On their own, each detail might mean nothing. Together, they form the kind of ambiguity Buckingham Palace is built to avoid. But the biggest red flag, according to this storyline, wasn't the birth itself. It was what came after. An event that should have locked the child into the monarchy's historical record, the christening. This is where the 1917 letters patent enters the conversation, an old document that suddenly carries modern weight.
That it just really kind of boggles the mind. I mean, just for titles, for example. So when Archie was first born, they said they didn't want him to have a title. He was going to be a private citizen. I was like, bravo, you understand. He's not going to be a working member of the royal family. He is going to have to live a normal life, get a normal job. That is fantastic. And then it came out later in the Oprah Winfrey interview. Well, they denied him a title and security because he is a mixed race child. And then it was kind of like, and then later she kind of backtracked.
Because within royal tradition, status isn't meant to be symbolic, it must be verifiable. Recognition depends on criteria the institution can document, a lineage it can trace, a birth process consistent with established royal procedure, and formal confirmations tied to the Church of England. These are not just customs, they're safeguards, designed to prevent disputes, confusion, or future claims against the crown. And this is why the christening matters so much. To outsiders, it looks like a family milestone. Inside the monarchy, it functions like a constitutional link, binding a royal child to the Church of England, the institution intertwined with the crown itself. It creates a formal record of identity in both faith and history. And in this narrative, that's exactly where the paper trail is said to go cold. Meghan's announcement about a California christening raised immediate questions.
And just went into labor when really Archie had been born for several hours at that point is a foolish game to play. And it only diminished credibility and trust, and it honestly made people kind of mad and irritated about the situation, because it's like, well, why would you do that? Why are you lying to people? Why are you trying to mislead people?
Because a legitimate Church of England ceremony would leave traceable documentation, registry entries, signatures, confirmations. Even private ceremonies generate records. But as advisors allegedly checked, nothing matching Lilibet's name appeared. No entry, no signature, no acknowledgement from the Archbishop's office. For any child, it would be unusual. For a child potentially tied to succession, this storyline frames it as a constitutional rupture, an absence that turns royal connection from assumed to incomplete and pushes Buckingham Palace toward assembling a formal internal case file. Once the christening issue surfaced, the palace is described as shifting from passive observation to organized review. Not a public investigation, not a tabloid war, but a quiet internal process used when something doesn't match precedent.
Harry and Meghan they would refuse to kind of show him. They finally kind of showed him off in South Africa, and it was very much, kind of a display, and she went to the polo match, and again, people wondered because it's like, she just didn't, it was a very stiff way she was holding him. It was just looked odd, and you looked at her and compared her to Kate, and you can't help the comparisons. And Kate is playing with baby Louis, and he's, kissing her, trying on sunglasses, and Meghan does not even look at Louis at all, and Louis looking at her.
Advisors, archivists, constitutional lawyers, and church liaisons were reportedly pulled in with a single goal: reconstruct every step of Archie and Lilibet's arrivals and compare them to royal standards. They built timelines from documents, statements, ceremonies, and public details. And while each inconsistency might be minor alone, together, they create the one thing the monarchy cannot tolerate: doubt. Because doubt erodes legitimacy, and legitimacy is the foundation the crown stands on. Inside Montecito, the mood is framed as far removed from the polished social media image, because Meghan and Harry understand what a royal review implies, and it's more dangerous than headlines. For Meghan, the risk is existential. Her post-royal brand is built on a carefully maintained mystique: modern duchess, royal-adjacent mother, someone who left the palace but still carries its aura. If that aura collapses, the entire structure of her public identity collapses with it. A duchess without verifiable royal lineage through her children changes everything. But for Harry, the impact is portrayed as even deeper. This isn't just reputation, it's identity. He was raised to believe bloodline mattered and that his children would remain part of the monarchy's future, even if he stepped away. Now that assumption is framed as slipping out of reach. And as the palace moves into legal territory, emotion stops being currency. The review, in this narrative, isn't something Meghan or Harry can talk their way out of, which brings the story to its final pressure point. What does the crown do next? Now that a file is said to exist, the most feared stage begins, the moment the monarchy decides how to act, and the crown historically chooses what protects the institution, not the individuals. 3 outcomes are positioned as possible: a quiet freeze on titles and recognition, a silent reclassification that treats the children as private individuals outside active royal structure, or the rarest option, a formal removal justified through documentation and protocol rather than public anger. And that is the underlying message of the entire narrative. The monarchy is designed to outlast people. The palace holds the authority, and in a system built on ink and record, a single decision can rewrite everything. Before the story turns again, like the video so more people find it, subscribe for the next update, and leave your take in the comments. Should the palace reveal everything publicly, or keep it behind closed doors? Stay tuned. This saga, for better or worse, is only getting started.